Hi, everybody. This is Jimmy DeYoung. Welcome to Prophecy Today video. This last weekend on our national radio broadcast, it was filled with conversations that we had with our broadcast partners and their insight into current events, issues that seemingly are setting the stage for Bible prophecy to be fulfilled. You can go to our website, prophecytoday.com, and PTRN, Prophecy Today Radio Network, and listen to all of these conversations. By the way, when you do that, I would suggest you pass along the information to your friends and loved ones who need to be listening to what these people are saying about current events, as I then take the Word of God and give you a prophetic perspective on all of these activities. That's prophecytoday.com, PTRN Radio. The conversation I had with South Carolina Representative Alan Clemens about the legislation that he wrote and then pushed through the South Carolina House, a bill that called for a united Israel, which includes Judea and Samaria and an undivided Jerusalem, was very important, in my opinion, as we talked about issues today. It's an example of what other state houses and even the United States Congress should be doing, standing with the Jewish state of Israel. Now, this brings me to our study today as we take a look at the book, The United States and Other Nations of the World in Bible Prophecy. That's the focus on our study in these last couple of minutes on the broadcast. Where did nations actually come from? Well, we have to go back to the book of beginnings, the book of Genesis, to find that out. Remember, in Genesis chapters 6, 7, and 8, we see the record of the flood, the worldwide flood, and the preservation of 8 souls, Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their 4 wives. In chapter 9 and verse 1, God gives to Noah a command. This is the command for all 8 members of this family to do what he wants to do, re-people the earth. And God blessed Noah and his sons, and he said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth. Genesis chapter 10, starting in verse 1, is the record of the obedience to the command of God by Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their 4 wives. Notice here in Genesis 10:1. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood. The sons of Japheth, and this was the first son of Noah, Gomer, Magog, skip a couple, Tubal, Meshech, go to the last one in verse 3, Togarmah. You've heard, if you know anything about Bible prophecy, those names before. We'll get back to that in just a moment. But notice what verse 5 says. Remember, these sons, Magog, Meshech, Tubal, Gomer, and Togarmah, were sons of Japheth, grandsons of Noah after the flood 4,500 years ago. Look at verse 5. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided into their lands, every one, notice, after his tongue. Remember, before Babel, there was one language, and then the Lord came down confusing the languages. Now they're going to have to divide up. That's exactly what this text is telling us, to have God's plan fulfilled to repeople the earth. They divided into their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. That gives us the origins of nations. Japheth is going to take his family, Magog, Meshech, Tubal, Gomer, and Togarmah. They're going to go to a certain piece of real estate to live. There they will learn the language of that piece of real estate, and they will establish a nation. If you know anything about biblical geography, you know that Magog went north of the Caspian and Black Sea. Meshech, Tubal, Gomer, and Togarmah went south of the Caspian and Black Sea. North would be Russia, south would be Turkey. So we see the establishment of these nations. By the way, they have a connection to Bible prophecy. We'll get to them in just a moment, but you notice how these nations were developed. Look at verse 6. Here's the second son, Ham. Now Ham begot Cush and Mizraim and Put. Those are the Hebrew names. Listen, Cush is Ethiopia, Somalia, Sudan. Mizraim, well, that's Egypt. And Put, that would be Libya. Now notice verse 8 here. And Cush begot Nimrod. Well, Nimrod, he went to a place in the plains of Shinar. chapter 10, verse 10. And the beginning of his kingdom, of Nimrod's kingdom, was Babel. That's basically on the shores of the Euphrates River. It's what today is 58 miles out of downtown Baghdad, which would be modern-day Iraq. We see how God now brings into existence nations. That's exactly what he's doing. Look here in verse 20. Now, these are the sons of Ham, after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, in their nations. I'm not going to have time to go into Shem, and I didn't get all of Ham's family as well either. But again, after they give the litany of peoples that would be born unto Shem, look what it says here in verse 31. These are the sons of Shem, after their families, after their tongues, in their lands, after their nations. Verse 32, chapter 10 of Genesis. These are the families of the sons of Noah, after their generations, in their nations, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood 4,500 years ago. That's how nations come into existence. Oh, there are many other nations, even like the United States, we don't have time to talk about. But these nations are nations established 4,500 years ago, and out of these nations come all the nations of the world. Hey, let's take a moment to look at the nations that play a key role in Bible prophecy. The second sealed judgment found in chapter 6 and verses 3 and 4 in the book of Revelation talk about a group of nations that will come together, lift the sword, take peace from the earth, and they will try to destroy the Jewish state of Israel. In Revelation chapter 16 and verse 12, it talks about the kings of the east. That would include China and India, and some of these nations that will come into the Middle East, into Jerusalem at the time of the end. Revelation chapter 16, verses 13 to 16, talks about all the nations of the world being gathered into Jerusalem at the end of the 7-year tribulation period. There are nations that are forming today, coalitions. The Bible tells us in Daniel 11, verses 40 to 45, it mentions Syria and Egypt. Ezekiel chapter 38, it talks about Russia. It talks about Ethiopia, Somalia, Sudan. It talks about Libya. Persia is referred to as Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan today. Psalm 83 talks about Saudi Arabia and Lebanon. Psalm 83 also says in verse 4, their goal is to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, that her name be blotted out forever. Oh, by the way, where's the United States? When all of those states gather in Jerusalem for that final battle, if America is still around, that's where they will be. My friend, all of these nations are going to come against the state of Israel. But before that happens, the rapture of the church, and that could happen at any moment. And having said that, nothing left for me to say, except let's keep looking up until...